Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. We are hitting February the 1st. We have arrived into February. So if this is the first time you're seeing us on this platform, we jump onto the YouTube live before we record the real show that you'll hear on Spotify. Today we're talking about the Adderall epidemic. I didn't even like the term epidemic, but
Yeah.
it was a little bit of an older term. It was a little bit more of an epidemic before, but the questions we're going to be covering is: do you know what Adderall actually does? Would you? Why do people abuse this, overuse it, misuse it, that type of thing? And it really kind of playing around with the question: is this an effective treatment for ADHD? Does it have efficacy? Cool word, efficacy, huh? Efficacy. So anyway, we have a great way on the YouTube Live to interact with us. You can kind of pose your questions and thoughts, and we really enjoy interacting with you. So, that's part of the advantage of hooking up here in about 6:15, and usually a little after 6:15.
We're running a little late today.
No, it's kind of
Are
usual. It's 6:15 to
Okay.
6:30 we fire up. But we're not waiting on John this time. It's our fault. We're going to miss John today. He's got some stuff that was going on, so... we are ready to rock and roll, I think, Neil, when you are ready to rock and roll. No, actually, I lied. Let me get... Okay, I'll be ready in just a second. Ready now. Hello, this is Through Therapist's Eyes. I am Chris Gazdick, and this is February. Is it February or February, Victoria?
February.
No R? February?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to play with the R's sometimes. February the 1st, 2024. Today we're going to be talking about the Adderall epidemic. And the questions that we want to focus a little bit on is, do you know what Adderall actually does? And why do or would people overuse this, abuse this, misuse this? We'll talk a little bit about addiction today, I think, as well. And then, is there an effective response to ADHD with Adderall? Does it have efficacy, really?
Also, before you get any further, happy Black History Month.
Oh, is it Black History Month?
Mm-hmm.
I suck at the ribbon days, color days, all that kind of stuff, yeah. So this is Black History Month.
It is.
All right, cool. And is there any national recognition that my birthday is in this month?
Would you like national recognition that your birthday is in this month?
Possibly international.
Okay. Happy birthday month.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ironically, I don't know when your birthday is.
Am I supposed to tell the world? Neil's asking me when. I have to text you. It's the 25th, but I don't think too many care.
At least
Okay.
it's not the 29th.
Why is that? Yeah, I know. We got a
Although
leap
they get a
year.
birthday this year, so
Yeah, they get a legit. That's a weird thing, man.
Isn't that weird?
The leap year birthday. I think it's a little.
yeah, like
odd.
there's someone, who is it? I can't remember. Some famous person whose birthday is on the 29th. And technically, I heard it the other day that they're like 40 something, but they would be turning 12 this year.
Yeah,
If it was actually like, if you actually.
But that's
sell
silly
it.
though. Yeah, I
That's
don't.
so crazy though that.
But that's not. I always thought that was stupid. I always thought that was a silly way of thinking about it. Anyway, let me do my stuff to get the bills paid a little bit and intro to what we do. So, Through a Therapist's Eyes, this is where you get insight directly from a panel of therapists. We're going to miss John today. He's got some family stuff that he has to tend to, but it's not to delivery of therapy services in any way.
Correct.
We got the book that's out and another one coming out. I'm kind of getting a little...
Are we getting closer to an official?
No, I got
date?
the production meeting is coming up next week, actually, or the week after. Anyway, a lot that goes into the pre-production, but you can't get pre-publication pre-orders that I need to start pushing. You can actually pre-order
really? Okay, yeah, we can push
books. Yeah. So, and the next one's coming out is going to be on marriage. Anyway, you can click subscribe, please. John's not here to tell you about
So I'll tell you that we need 5 stars.
5 stars. He loves pushing that. It does help us out, guys. Click the bell for notifications and the
Helps the
subscribe
algorithm.
button. Helps us get found. It's your job. That is your job, listening to the show. If you like our content, we really need you to do your job as we're doing our job, providing you with some cool content that we really hope that you enjoy. Contact at throughatherapist'seyes.com is the way to get up with us. And we do want to very much mention 2 things. One, Reed Ferguson does our little intro music. We're really appreciative of him for having done that, right? And he would love to get your call or contact He'll come out and do parties, events, comes to your place to play his music. He does a really cool job. Single man guitar show. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So reidferguson.com. It's spelled weird though. ReidTferguson.com. You can find him on Instagram and all the fun places he might be out there. Also, lastly, not least, we have
First Horizon Bank as our sponsor.
Yay! They're riding with us in 2024. We appreciate them staying on board. They're a great banking system all around the country. We now notice their branches everywhere we go because it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
First Horizon really cares about financial literacy. They really engage you on what your banking needs are, all the simple and large and complex banking needs that you might have.
They'll answer all your questions.
First Horizon is your friend. We gotta get
based out of Memphis, Tennessee.
There you go. You get it. You got it. You have it. All right. Hey, let's get to it, man. Let's get to the stuff.
Let's get her going.
So, actually, I thought I'd do a little bit of through therapist size.
Yeah. What?
People I think have a natural curiosity about how we live, how we work. Like,
right.
What's it like being a therapist?
Oh goodness.
You want to tell them about my day?
Your day?
Yeah. What you noticed?
Yeah. Chris was struggling today. So one thing that I do in the office. Okay, so we have couches in our office. Obviously, I am a very avid napper. I'll admit that. I will, if I have a free hour in my day where someone doesn't show up or I don't have anyone scheduled, I will lay down on my couch and take a nap. Chris always makes fun of me for that.
I don't make fun of you. I just make fun of you for as many things as I can find.
Yeah. And he actually took a nap today.
I did, man.
I was so proud.
I crashed. Well, it's funny because you don't really get the opportunity to. And
yeah.
I think,
you're
honestly,
a lot fuller than I am.
I don't know what went on with me today, but honestly, like I had a couple of new clients.
Mm-hmm. You did have a lot of, you usually don't have that.
I've been slamming lately. I mean, slamming hard and with just a lot of business stuff and then clinical stuff and throw some personal stuff in there. And I don't know if that's what it is, but yeah, I crashed and I poured a lot into those sessions this morning. I really engage pretty purposefully and intentionally when I'm meeting somebody new. Like I don't take an initial appointment lightly. I really don't.
Well, and also, I mean, I think what some people don't grasp about therapy or being a therapist is that yes, we're not doing like physical labor all day, but it is very mentally and emotionally draining. Because if you think about it,
in a good way,
right? Yeah, but I mean, okay, if you think of yourself as a client and think about what you talk about in therapy, times that. But I mean, it's a good way of understanding. Like a full day for me is 9 people.
Let me jump at that because I have a different take on that and something that I do want people to understand.
Yeah, go for it.
It's not like I get all the time the statements of like, oh God, I don't know how you do what you do. It's amazing. That'd be so draining. I couldn't stand it. I want people to understand that your emotion is so draining to you.
Yeah.
And this is why people are fearful of talking to their friends or their family. And I don't know if you picked up or thought about this a lot, Victoria, but the person receiving that story or the person receiving that emotion, this is important, guys, is not anywhere near as draining to the person who's receiving it because it's not theirs.
Right, yeah. I mean, we're just listening to people.
Right.
But part of our job is making sure that we don't carry the burden of what people tell us.
Which is taxing,
Yeah, because it's not our burden to carry, or it's not our responsibility to carry the load of the things that our clients tell us.
Well, the beautiful thing is your friends don't either. Is
Exactly,
my main point here, that you can do that with family and friends and your supports. It's just the fact, and where I thought you were going more, Victoria, is like when you're using your brain, it's exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
All day long, like anybody doing brain power all day long, like
because
banking
sometimes
or
even
whatever.
when we don't have someone, like I've seen when you have a no-show, you're still in here doing paperwork, you're catching up on notes, you're doing all these other things, and although I don't always have as much to do, still it is like, I mean, I do have things sometimes that I need to do, like during in between people, and I'm running all over the place. And
so anyway, I want to get to the stuff. So good stuff, Victoria. So my feed went weird. There it is. Statistics. I don't. I've said many times. Interesting. Since I've been doing this show with the panel, I haven't said many times that this isn't a statistics show,
Right.
but they're helpful, and I don't go too far in them. But I wanted to throw some things out there to kind of get us going, to get us thinking about how much in what used to be called the epidemic, the Adderall epidemic, has affected people and the changes. Although it's interesting, I'm curious, Victoria, what your view is with that. Like, I didn't like the title today, honestly, because I don't really know that we have an Adderall epidemic anymore. I feel like
I'm
that's
not
past.
quite sure. I mean, I actually do have a client, I don't see them, a client's significant other, if I can recall, who is still currently having issues getting
Oh well, we'll cover that.
medication.
That's a different topic. Yeah, we'll cover that tonight.
So when
what do
you
call it?
say, okay,
The
I think I took your title
Right.
wrong. I thought you were going the way of that there's been a shortage.
Right. We're not talking about the
We're not talking
current
about the
event
shortage.
of the shortage.
We're talking about, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
It's okay. Because
My brain
yeah,
is delayed
I knew we
today.
were disconnecting on that, but we're connected
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
The epidemic really refers to a period of time where Adderall was like a big freaking
yeah.
deal. Like people were getting it. It was all over the streets. Doctors were
Selling
pushing it and
it, yeah.
selling it and pushing it. And there was a big explosion like kind of in the 90s before you were working in the field.
Right.
Everybody had ADHD.
Well, I was born in the 90s.
Oh, dear God. Are you serious?
Early 90s.
Dude. Okay. In the 2000s, then I'll say everyone had ADHD. And it was just a fad. But it's not a fad, people. This is a real thing.
Well, and
So.
one thing I always explain to parent, because I work a lot with kids, and naturally, kids that come to see me a lot of them tend to have ADHD.
They might have.
But one thing I like to explain to parents is that ADHD is a chemical imbalance. Like if you take a picture of my brain as someone who has ADHD, and Neil, do you have ADHD? And you take a picture of Neil's brain, like they're gonna look different when you like look at the chemical compounds of like our brain, all this sciencey stuff. Like our brains are gonna look different, not just because we're different people, but like because of I have ADHD and he doesn't.
Because you're a girl? No, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. It was a joke. That's all it was a joke.
But
Yeah.
and so I explained that to parents, and because unfortunately I do have parents, and I've had people say like, "Oh, they'll just grow out of this. It's just a phase."
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry, but if your child really does have this, like it means that their brain is built differently than someone who doesn't. And
Right.
as far as I know, there's not a way to fix that.
And we talked about it prior, and through the show today, you've said, Victoria, and you've already talked about it on the show a little bit.
Right.
You're more than willing, and in a lot
Yeah.
today, you got a great panel. You got a great clinician because Victoria is a firsthand exposure of having ADHD, and so we're definitely going to pepper that in a lot. I think to talking about it because
Yeah.
it's a hell of a thing to live it.
Right.
And there's
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot there for that. So yeah, that'll be cool. I mean, it's great to have you with us to be able to do that. So some of the statistics. What do I want to get across here?
That first
And-
one.
Yeah. It was like produced in milligrams. Produced is what it highlighted. An aggregate production quota in kilograms. That's how they're mentioning or measuring rather the Adderall production and use. So like in 1990, there's 2,000. I don't know what all that means. I didn't do a deep dive on
Oh,
this.
I meant more the next one.
But honestly, in 2000, it was 14,000. So that shows you the jump. Like I said, in the 90s, man, everybody had ADHD. It was terrible. In the 2000s, it was still going on, right?
I mean, that's a 12,000
It's a huge jump.
job.
10,000 jump. Well, no, you're right,
It's
12,000.
12,000.
Yeah.
But
Right?
even here, like from 2006 to 2011, the illegal use of Adderall among young adults increased by 67%, while emergency room visits increased by 156%.
Right. Like that's the 2000s. Like Adderall hit the street and it blew up.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was going. That's kind of when we had an epidemic, if you will. The next one, what did I? Oh, this, and we got links for all this.
Yeah.
So this was interesting too. I pulled out that non-medical use of Adderall among 12th graders has remained relatively stable at 6 to 7% since 2009. Again, I feel like this has gotten better than when we had.
Oh no, and I
more
remember
problems
when this
with
was
it.
a thing.
Do you?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I
Were you on Adderall then, or you take
I've
Vyvanse?
never been on Adderall.
Yeah, you take Vyvanse.
Yeah,
am I
for
wrong?
a short period of time.
Okay. Well, don't know
I
what
was
you
on
do.
Concerta for a majority of my life.
Gotcha. Okay. And we'll maybe talk a little bit
we
about
can talk
those.
a little bit more about that later.
So more than 16 million adults are believed to use Adderall. That's
And see,
a lot of freaking people.
Well, and that's crazy because, like, that's just one ADHD med.
Right.
Like
Good point.
that doesn't include the
Good
people that
point.
take Concerta, the people that take Vyvanse, the people that take other
Focalin.
ones. Yeah, the people that take Ritalin.
Or even Wellbutrin.
Yeah, like that's just one.
That's an excellent point.
and
I
I saw that. I was like, dang. So I wonder what it would be.
I
if
didn't
it
think
was,
about that.
If it was people who, I want. Okay,
And then
this
lastly,
is a study from. This says from 2024, but is that?
Yeah, that was.
I mean, it's
this,
just estimated, I guess.
I don't want to take a deep dive on statistics and studies and stuff. That's
Right.
not what we want to do. But studies suggest 30 to 50% of those abusing Adderall are college students, because that's the other point I got from the statistics. Like, that's one of the biggest populations now that has a quote unquote epidemic, because college students are catching wind of the idea that I can go get a diagnosis. I'll say what I need to say. Everyone can Google the symptom sets and they'll give me Adderall. And that makes it easier to do an all-nighter. That also increases my focus. That helps me get by with the things that I need to do when I have a lot of intense,
Right.
needs to accomplish. Because the thing is I understand that Adderall will help anybody focus better. But I've also always maintained that, I'll throw this in, it gets at this point. Okay, do I want to say this on the show or not?
But see, I
Quick
also
debate.
have a point to make too. At some point, I don't know if I'll make it right now, but
So what I've kind of said is, and this is not a formal suggestion, it's more of a realization, but sometimes when I'm talking to adults, and let me highlight adults, not with kids. With kids, they already have a lot going on,
So we're
a
talking
lot of
18
emotional
up.
adjustments, all kinds of, emotional shame and all this stuff. So we don't want to be experimenting with them in any way.
right.
Adults, though, can take Adderall. And what'll happen is, if you don't have ADHD, you're going to get a lot of house cleaning done. Like, you're going to be, a bit wired, right?
Yeah.
It's speed. It's a stimulant.
Right.
If you have ADHD,
Thank you.
if you have this issue, then you take the stimulant. It doesn't do that. And people don't understand. It doesn't act like speed. Instead,
For someone who
actually
has ADHD.
Yeah, because what it's doing is, maybe we'll talk more about this, but I'll throw this in now too. So we understand that the frontal cortex, the brain, right, is our abstract thinking piece.
Right.
It processes data. It takes point A, point B, point C, point D, point E, point F, point G, point H, and it pulls all those things together, unrolls point E, and pulls the rest to think through a complicated process.
To make a decision and problem solve and all that thing.
When you have ADHD, you miss point B, you get point B, D, you get point G, but you forget point F, and then you forgot point D, and it's like now you're trying to make a complicated, quick decision.
It's all like
It's twisted.
spaghetti.
It's spaghetti. So what Adderall does, as I understand it, it acts as a stimulant specifically to the frontal cortex that is doing that brain function for us. And it triggers functioning. It stimulates the brain to do
It
that.
helps straighten out the spaghetti.
I love that. Go with that metaphor a little more.
Well, yeah, it kind of helps. So if you think about how you're explaining it, the things in your frontal cortex are all jumbled. They're all mixed up like spaghetti. So, and that's a brain with ADHD. So then when you take a stimulant like Adderall, it's going to untangle those spaghetti noodles in your brain, and it's going to straighten them out and make it so that you can like process information easier. You can problem solve, you can focus, you can make decisions.
Right. So as
and like think through a decision making kind of
So
thing.
as you were talking about before with the brain imaging, we have had some cool stuff guys, therapists listening out there, in my humble opinion, it's overcooked. We have brain imaging and it's helpful. Don't think that you're going to hear people talking about brain imaging. We figured this out or that out, and it's
Yeah.
like this magical panacea of new understanding. It's not.
Right.
It really isn't. It helps understand different fundamental aspects of various issues, including PTSD and depression and other things. So, but you can see on brain imaging the
Right.
differences in Victoria's brain and Neil's.
Right.
And what you'll see is that there's blackened out pieces that aren't firing. When you take Adderall, it fires, and it makes the brain imaging look similar
Yeah.
to regular and typical functioning. Right?
And I think what I was going to mention is, and I don't know if we'll get to this later, but a lot of times also people.
Well, as an ADHD show, we're all out of order.
Yeah, it's
so.
okay. What I don't think some people understand, and I'm pretty sure, there's studies and things that back this up, is that if you are someone who is dealing with trauma and you take Adderall,
Oh boy,
it's gonna heighten your symptoms and
not a
make
good
them
thing.
way worse. And so
Yeah.
if you're thinking, like, if you're in college and you've experienced a lot of trauma in your life,
Yeah.
and or you have PTSD and you
Right.
go and someone offers you take Adderall because you think it's going to help you focus,
Oh man.
oh,
I
your
see
life
where you're
is about to
going.
get a real
Dangerous.
yeah.
It's dangerous.
And that's why some people, I mean, and I don't know if
Let me jump in
yeah.
to this because there's another big piece to understand about that with that point, which is
Right.
an excellent point to teach people. We have new treatments. Let's listen to some information about this.
Mm-hmm.
That there's some new treatments. They're purporting that we have medications that fix that cure PTSD, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't do that at all.
Yeah.
What they're doing with like nervous twitching and the startle responses is they're giving beta blockers. Okay?
Okay.
And what beta blockers do is they sort of shorten and shut down the sympathetic responses that the brain does. That's a complicated word. We won't have time to get into it, but
Yeah.
basically your fight or flight system will go zing and you'll be wild. And it's terrifying and very disconcerting for people that have trauma. Well, as you're saying very accurately, opposite from beta blockers, you take Adderall and even more zing
Yeah.
happens. So it's,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
excellent
and so I
teaching
think,
moment.
and that's why I think that's part of people not understanding, maybe, because I mean, that's what do you know what Adderall actually does? Like, that's one of the things it does. And so if you're taking it, and yes, people can have ADHD and also have trauma in their lives.
Oh yeah.
You can have both.
Also, it's high comorbidity rates with anxiety and or depression. Meaning,
Right.
if you have ADHD, a lot of the time you have depression and or anxiety.
Me.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Me.
what says you about that?
Yeah. Hey, I think that normalizes therapists a little bit. We're just like y'all. We have our own problems.
And I love that, right? It's real. And let me say, I should have said this off the get-go. I'm really appreciative of you being willing to be genuine about that and talk about the real realities in day to day. And I'm really curious what your experience has been being on Concerta for so long and for so much, because the day to day is something that I really kind of hone in when I'm working with the ADHD issues, because people don't realize like how this really impacts you.
Yeah.
Because,
I was telling you the other day, my mom gave me the original script
oh really?
of like
You
my
did?
doctor writing out that's what, and it was dated 2002.
Oh wow, really?
Which means I would have been in third grade, fourth grade, end of third grade,
When this was
possibly
first
fourth grade.
identified?
When I was first diagnosed.
Hmm.
And I was diagnosed with ADD first.
Well, that's
the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we used to
Which
call
is
it.
now ADHD. But yeah, I mean, so basically third grade. Yeah, because I was in third grade when 9/11 happened. if that dates me. But so yeah, 2002. So yeah, I mean, I was third, fourth grade when I got diagnosed, and I'm pretty sure I can probably clarify with my mother, but I'm pretty sure I started taking medication almost like immediately.
So let's talk a little bit about, Victoria, the concerns that people have in general with psychopharmacology. Okay.
I don't want my kid to be like a zombie.
Right.
Oh, that's a number
time.
one thing I would hear when I worked in a school. That was the number one thing. And even sometimes here in office, I don't want my kid to be a zombie. I don't want my kid to not feel anything. Like, and
Right.
I don't know about you. Usually what I do to explain to parents explain that to parents is usually that means that your child is not on the right medication for them.
Right.
And that it excuse me, that it most likely there needs to be either a change of medication or an alteration of the dosage.
Titrate it up or taper it down,
Or a different medication altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my mom told me once that when they first started me out on medication, they had Ritalin had like just came out.
Oh, really?
And or it was like
already out?
It was like a new thing. And my mom said, I think I remember my mom saying that they tried me on that, and I literally had like absolutely no appetite whatsoever. Like I wouldn't eat anything.
Appetite suppression
and
is
so
another thing. Yeah.
they took me off it. Like I stopped taking that, and started taking Concerta. But
So Concerta was already out then?
I think
That's interesting. Yeah, I thought that was
excuse me.
a lot later than that. But it doesn't matter because, I have a whole protocol that I want to help people understand the medication world. I mean, I had the benefit of working with psychiatry a lot early on in my career. Like I even worked with psychiatry residents in the hospitals, when they were training. So I was exposed a lot to psychopharmacology. And here's a line, and I want to invite you to use this line, Victoria.
Okay.
Because I think it is something I've landed on, and I have said more than thousands of times in therapy with people. And it's a really disarming reality. But it also highlights the reality that there is efficacy to these things. Like these things help. They work. Thankfully, we have technology. So here's my line. That medications, thankfully, are a very helpful tool to manage mental health conditions. But unfortunately, though, they're not a solution.
Right.
Right? I mean, pretty simple. But it cuts through a lot of the red tape. It cuts through a lot of the fears because it highlights, like, these really are helpful.
Right.
But they're not going to solve anything. They just don't make a problem go away.
Right.
It's a part of the whole wraparound reality in really all of mental health that you have to learn about. Because unfortunately, our technology does suck a little bit at this point. So some of the stuff that's in my protocol, Victoria, that I'm sure you know to a certain extent, add with what you will. We have a little bit of a guessing game with medications.
Yeah, and I do tell that to people.
It's a little bit like throwing the mud ball against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Right.
You have different choices. You have different side effects. You have different dosing. And so, you might need more than what I have. I might need less than what you have. You may have side effects that I don't have. There's a lot of very frustrating process that you do in the beginning of this sometimes. But then once you get going, I mean, how glad are you, I might ask directly, Victoria, that you had the benefit of a psychopharmacological treatment for ADHD that otherwise, in 1965, you wouldn't have had.
Yeah, I mean, and I just looked it up. The FDA approved Concerta in 2000.
Oh, wow, that's earlier than I would have thought.
Adderall was 1996, and then the slow release capsule came out in 2001.
Oh boy, we're going to talk a little bit about abuse. Hopefully, if we have time today. Before they came out with that slow release, Victoria, you weren't working then. Holy donkey! This thing was being crushed and snorted, and it was brutal, man. People.
But I mean, I think that I don't know. I saw benefits from it. I mean, if we look at it, I switched off Concerta for the first time. Oh gosh, I think I was in college. No, grad school. So I mean, I was on Concerta for 15 something
That's a long time.
years. and then I switched to Vyvanse for a little bit. And then I switched back to Concerta, and I was on Concerta when I got pregnant, and therefore I had to stop. And
Which is why you're still off, right?
which is why I'm still off. I'm working on that. I'm getting back,
Well,
back
okay,
on.
so I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
One, again, the question is, how glad are you that you had that pharmacological treatment through
Very.
that time? And
Yes.
why, right?
Why? Because I do feel like it improved my functioning and quality of life. Like I was actually able to function normally comparatively to like other kids. And I actually was able to, use like do well in school and things like that.
Focus. and
Yeah. Well, and
stay
I mean, also,
calm.
I mean, I think my parents did a really good job because my parents never let me use having ADHD and taking medication as an excuse for not being able to do something.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And that was just my parents. And I mean, they let me have access to the resources that I had access to, but still they wouldn't let me say like, oh, I can't do that because I have ADHD, or like I'm not good at this because I have ADHD. Like they did kind of push me and make sure that I wasn't going to be the kind of person that says like, oh,
Lots of parenting issues, which we're not going to talk about today. But there's a lot.
Yeah, we
there.
can do a whole nother episode on that.
So, well, we will, honestly. Stay tuned and will again in different forms. So, fascinating question that I have, and we haven't
Right.
talked about this, right? So, fascinating question I have is how, emotion word, so blank, how blank are you to get back on the pharmacological treatment as an adult? Because it's been about a year and a half.
It's been about 2 years.
2 years. Okay, wow, yeah.
Well, actually, more than that because I stopped when I got pregnant.
Because, like, I don't know
And my
you.
kid is almost 2.
I don't know you on meds,
You don't.
right?
Ooh.
Right?
I mean, you only know me on like anxiety meds.
Okay, well, there's that too. So, how blank are you to get back onto pharmacological medication, and maybe why?
I don't know if I want to use the word impatient or excited or looking forward to. And why is, I mean, can you
And I'm
not-
sorry if I
can
put you on the spot.
Can you
if-
not
if
tell
I-
that I don't have that I have a hard time focusing? I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
bless my clients. If you're one of my clients
Well,
and you're watching this, bless you.
Hold on a
because
minute.
You,
Hold on a minute. You do wonderful.
Yeah.
You do wonderful.
No,
and
I
I
mean,
mean
I'm
that
not
as a compliment. You're on
denying that.
point. You haven't missed any paperwork. There's been no
Right.
business problems. Like, you manage this, Victoria, and I mean to compliment you
Yeah.
with that. But if you know what you're looking for, which I do, I
yeah,
can
you can spot it.
definitely
You can spot it right off.
But listen to me though, if you don't know what you're looking for,
Yeah.
I don't think people spot that in you. I think they
No.
just see a bubbly personality that's
Maybe.
fun, that's engaging, a little flighty. Really, and I hope I'm not being rude.
No.
But a
I'm
little flighty,
flighty.
fun, engaging, bubbly.
Right.
That I don't think they meet you and are like, oh my God, this woman is.
I guess maybe I see it more because it's myself.
Right.
And so I notice it more. And like my husband notices it, and family members and stuff like that. Also, I don't know the science between having a baby and like how your hormones and
Yeah,
like
it's a lot
your
there.
body chemistry. Because honestly, for a while there, I didn't feel like I needed it. After
wow. Really?
after I had a baby and was like breastfeeding, and minus the actual exhaustion from having a baby.
I would love to take a deep dive on that.
And so there was a period of time where and even my husband made a comment about how he felt like I was like doing really good without it.
Wow.
And I didn't have a problem coming off of Concerta
yeah.
and stopping it. And honestly, the only reason they wouldn't let me take it is because there's not enough research to support that it's okay to be taken while pregnant.
Yeah, you just were cautious. And
Yeah, and so, technically, if I really wanted to, they said they would write me a prescription for it, but I said, I don't want to risk it or whatever.
I
But,
get that.
yeah, I mean, and the why is just, like, I know how effective it can be as an adult because I was taking it before I got pregnant as an adult.
And
so,
that needs to be a show highlight.
what?
That needs to be an episode highlight.
That
Like,
it's effective even as an
you
adult?
saying, I'm excited or whatever word you used because you know how effective it can be in day-to-day function.
Yeah.
Like, I want people to hear that because I feel like that's a big deal. Like, look, if you are struggling with ADHD and you have the concerns about psychopharmacological treatment, taking antidepressants and all the different medications, like, I say that's a highlight because I want you to know, really, you, the listener, you need to know that there is help out there for you, that you don't have to continue struggling, with the functioning that you may or may not even be aware of all of the ins and outs of it. Like, it is very reasonable to do a trial with these things and just see, particularly if you're an adult, to just see how might this be a tool to help you manage the things that you're managing. Because I do find that you out there that has ADHD really struggle in some ways. And sometimes I have adults that begin taking this and they're amazed. They're like, I never knew that you could think this smoothly and clearly and be this on point and feel calm in what it is that you're thinking about. Like, they're amazed, Victoria.
Well, and it's not just so now or without medication. I'm probably going to have, if I have stay at home, I'm going to have 20 different tasks open at one time. I'm going to start laundry. And then I'm going to realize I forgot to put up the dishes. And I'm going to start putting up the dishes.
Right.
And then I'm going to realize that my coffee mug cabinet is all out of order. And then I'm going to focus on that. And then I'm going to realize, oh, this coffee mug is broken. I need to throw it away. Oh, the trash is full. I need to take it out. Oh, the bin is dirty. I need to clean that. And then it's like I have like 20 things that are open and trying to complete at one time. On medication, I'm able to like fold the laundry, complete that all the way through, go to the dishwasher, unload the dishwasher all the way through, take out the trash, like all the way through, come back in, put a new bag in the trash can. Like, I'm
Just
able
pause
to do
there.
that.
That's a fundamental functioning day-to-day experience. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And whereas my husband doesn't have that issue, he can like do the laundry and complete it without having a million be like feeling like he's got to go do other things.
Or in the middle of an hour-long task, such as laundry or something, have a disruption, deal with the disruption, and come immediately back to that task.
Yeah, he can do that. Me, I struggle with that.
Right, because that task is old news with ADHD.
Yeah. Well, because it's a lot of like, you're just moved on to the next thing. It's why a lot of ADHD people will have like a craft closet that's full of all these projects that they've get hyper focused on for about 2 weeks, and then they lose interest in it, and then it goes into a closet somewhere, and then they move on to the the next thing. Or
what's really frustrating to me about ADHD specifically, and especially for kids, but also adults, is the misunderstanding that other people have in relationship to a person with ADHD.
You mean the fact, I can do it, why can't you?
Well,
or kind of thing?
Those types of things. But so if you think about the kids, they get misunderstood and they get identified because they're not completing their task or listening or blurting out answers or doing some of the behaviors that we see as lazy, as not intelligent, as disruptive and disobedient, as being the class clown because they don't care.
Right.
So they're apathetic. That's not what's going on for these guys and gals. And that plays into adulthood too.
Oh, yeah.
You know when I learned that in adult ADHD especially?
What?
Early on, I had a client that happened to be blonde, and we were talking about some of the symptoms with ADHD, and I picked it out. I was proud of myself at that point because I was like, oh my God, I found this. Nobody's talked about this with this woman all of her life. She was like 40, 30, 35. And and we were talking about the symptoms, and I was playing around with it, seeing if this fits or not. And she's like, "Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God, yeah, 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 yeah." And she stopped, Victoria, and she looked at me. She says, "Do you know what people call me, Chris?" And I was like, "What? You mean like a nickname?" She's like, "Yeah, all of my friends, all of my family, they call me Ditz." That was her nickname. She had lived with this all of her life and didn't even know that that was going on.
She just had
and
ADHD.
right, and but that's the way people experienced her.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna go with like the whole like dumb blonde thing.
Well,
And
ditzy.
basically,
Ditzy.
yeah.
That's I don't know if that's kind of an
That's
old
basically
word.
the same thing,
It's a
yeah.
little bit of an old word, but that was it touched me because I was like, "Oh my gosh," and I was able to help her identify this. And
Well, yeah,
off
now
went
she
with
can say like, okay, I'm not.
insight.
Yeah.
She had insight about it.
But yeah, and I mean, I've seen it a lot working in a school, especially in an elementary school.
Oh, I bet.
And I mean, and there's things to help with that, like 504 plans and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's hard sometimes because I think a lot of times what happens is it's the same thing as like someone who's experiences anxiety or depression and someone who doesn't. Like there is that certain level of like not misunderstanding, but like not being able to understand because they don't understand how, like what goes on in an ADHD person's brain. So it's kind of like, do you get where I'm going with that?
I do. I'm just pondering, like I'm aware of like the time of the show already, and it's like wow, right? And I'm trying to think like what do we want to cover? Like, do you think we haven't done much of like what is ADHD, right? And
No.
let me try to do that super quick
Yeah,
so
go
that we
for it.
have a little bit of a guideline, and basically the things that we look for. You've heard this before, I think, listening. So it's inattention, close attention to details, holding attention, seem not to listen, not following through, organizing tasks, avoiding long mental efforts. I do want to break the myth of reading. Do you like reading, Victoria?
I finished January with reading 17 books.
People have this myth out there about ADHD not being able to read. Like, that's not true.
It's more the attention and like,
go ahead.
Yeah, like now, if you asked me if I ever read the books throughout high school and college that I was supposed to read,
Not interesting.
no. But you know what my mom did to help fix that?
Okay.
She bought the audiobooks.
Right.
Of the books, and I would listen to that instead,
Right.
and we would just play it over and over again in the car or whatever.
Right.
And that was how I managed. But
It's tough in 19.
But I read a lot now because that books actually
They're
hold my
interesting.
they're interesting.
When something's mundane and boring, it's like impossible to stay on it with ADHD.
Oh, especially with ADHD, yeah.
Right? Boring professional tasks. I mean, school, that's what makes it. So you could read on ADHD if you're interested. That's my main myth blow up there. But the hyper tasks and stuff, fidgeting, feeling restless, unable to enjoy leisurely, quietly. Like, that's a big thing. Like, you have interests, but being able to just,
it's very hard for me to sit still in the quiet.
Right? Like, just be calm.
I need to be moving.
No, sit down with me.
Like, even sitting
Chill,
here, you can't. I don't know if you can see
quiet.
my full body, but like, I can't even stay in the same position.
It is going to be fascinating, the listeners long term, to see when you get on medications, honestly.
Maybe when I get on it, I should just not say anything and then
Here's what we'll do.
See if
Here's
you
what I'd like.
notice the difference.
Here's what I'd like to do.
Yeah.
When you do, give it a few weeks. You'll remember this more than I will. Give it a few weeks, and maybe don't even tell me, but I bet I'll figure it out. We should play a game too. When you start, don't tell me, and see how long it takes me to say, "Hey, Victoria," because anyway. And give it a few weeks on the show, and have people listen and see if they can identify any difference or whatever. And then we'll do like a little current event and revisit this. Does that sound fun?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we'll do it that way. That'll be fun.
But also there's things like on the go, as if being driven by a motor, talking excessively, which is the big one, blurting out answers or responses, trouble waiting in line or waiting your turn, interrupts or intrudes on others. All those are symptoms / criteria.
Yeah, those are the things
ADHD.
we're looking for to diagnose
And
stuff.
that's correct me if I'm wrong, both inattentive and hyperactivity.
Right. So
Or
with
is that
ADHD, you got inattentive type, you got a hyper
hyper?
type, and then you've got a combined
Combined
type.
both.
That's the way we designate that
I
now.
have combined.
You have combined? Yeah. Shocker.
Shocker.
And actually, there's also a continuum. ADHD can be really mild, it can be moderate, or it can be severe.
Yeah.
What would you call yourself? Because I'll give a tip.
Now
I don't-
I would probably say moderate.
Yeah.
Probably growing up, I was severe.
I was going to say, I don't think it's mild.
Yeah, definitely not mild.
Okay.
How many times do I interrupt you on this show?
I know. I'm dancing a little bit because I don't want to be disrespectful, but
No, you're fine.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay, honestly, I've probably heard it way worse
Yeah.
than what you're gonna say.
And isn't that no? That's all I'm going to say. But isn't that sad? Like the
that I've heard worse.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like listen. If you have ADHD, you will understand this, and I want you to know that it's frustrating.
It can be.
This can be maddening, and again, other people just don't understand. I've had marriages where I diagnosed with adult ADHD, and it's like light bulbs come on because people don't typically think that way, and that's why they say the worst things that Victoria's received in life, and that's why people get so frustrated, and then they're sometimes really people are mean. It's I just want you to understand. I want to normalize that a little bit. It's because they really just don't understand, and some of the stuff is frustrating to the other person. Like Victoria, if I'm married to you, like I'm just asking you to get lettuce and hamburger and mustard, and I need milk and I want silver, plasticware at the grocery store. Can you not come back with all those things?
I'm gonna need you to text me that in order for me to remember it.
What the hell, right? Like and the husband can be so angry with you
Yeah.
about that.
Or why did you go to the grocery store for milk, but you got all these other things and you did not get milk?
Right. It's just this. And if you don't even know this is going on, it's just it's heartbreaking.
Well, and I think also it's disheartening sometimes too, and I'm sure people who take ADHD meds have experienced this too. But like once you start ADHD meds and other people know that you're on ADHD meds, like the time when you forget them, that's when people are like,
"What the hell's wrong with you?"
Yeah, it's so hard.
What's wrong with you?
I mean, like I remember.
They're so harsh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're and like, well, at least
because they're used to. Let me get this right.
Yeah.
So if you're taking medications, which is another thing about medications, these are different than a lot of the other medications in pharmacology.
Mm-hmm.
Most mental health medications you really need to take regularly and
Every day.
routinely. These are SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, your antidepressants, your bipolar medications especially, your antipsychotic medications. Most medications in mental health you need to get real regimented with so that it's on point and your body has certain levels with it. ADHD medications, specifically the stimulant medications, they are very fast acting, like ibuprofen. If you have a headache, you take ibuprofen, it fixes it, and you don't take it anymore. That's the way stimulant medications work. You cannot do that with your antidepressant. You cannot do that with your antipsychotic. You have to be real regimented with them.
Basically, it doesn't stay in your system.
It doesn't stay in your system very long, which is why we try to do the extended release, and that makes, it used to be you had to take a morning dose and then an afternoon dose so that by the time you were done with school, it stayed in your system.
Yeah.
Now we have extended release that slowly releases in your body throughout the day, and that's a big difference.
Yeah, Concerta would typically last me about 12 hours.
Right. So back to what you were saying,
well, I mean,
when
it's
people are used to you on medication and then you skip a day, they're harsh.
It's like, oh, Lord, Victoria did take her medication today. Like, she's going to be hard to deal with. And like,
wow.
And I guess it's not necessarily like, there are other meaner things that you could probably say, but it is kind of like, oh, so you don't like me when I'm myself, when I'm like, without medication, like, because it happens sometimes. Like, I mean, I've had issues getting things filled. I've been on vacation before and forgot my medicine at home
Sure.
for like a week.
Right, of
And
course.
good Lord, like, and and I'm a like fun, loving Debbie person. So I typically try to let those things like roll off my shoulders. But like when it gets said all the time,
That
like,
can hurt.
yeah, like,
That
do
can hurt.
y'all, like, I mean, I know I can be a lot to handle sometimes, but like,
Right.
y'all only want to be my friends when I'm like
Medicated.
medicated.
Yeah. There's so much there.
And as an adult, I'm like, whatever now. But I mean, as a kid, like,
Well, particularly as a kid.
yeah,
Yeah, like kids are harsh, man.
kids are
Mean.
kids are mean.
And they don't mix any punches. They're
Yeah.
like, you won't shut up. You're out of line. You're going to get us in trouble. I don't like, I mean, it gets
Yeah.
rough, Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, boy.
Yeah, where are we going with
I
this?
figured this conversation would be good and flow. I mean, we
It's
didn't
just
need
like,
show notes for this
well, I mean,
one.
yeah, and like me personally,
Let me transition to stuff.
Yeah, no,
if I
go
can.
for it.
Because I really want to spend a minute. I really want to have a segment here on the other side of the story
Right.
about the concerns with pharmacological treatment and the Adderall reality.
Right.
And that is with the college students. That is what we used to see with more of the epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you do need to understand this is a stimulant. It's not quite as unregulated and bad as what you get on the street with speed.
Right.
Amphetamines like methamphetamine, those are really, really bad.
Right.
And unfortunately, these medications get clumped in with that.
Mm-hmm.
And to a certain extent, you need to understand that they need to be clumped in with that because it's like speed. It's a stimulant. If I were to take this, I think I would be wired.
So are you saying basically that it can be addictive?
It can be abused. Now, interesting, I'll refer to the episode when we said, what is addiction? And we really took a deep dive on that a few months back.
Right.
You need to listen to that show. Let me say that again. If you're listening to this and you're curious about the abuse section, you need to listen to that show. Because I'm going to make a statement, and you need to understand the difference between abuse and addiction, which clearly don't have time today. I really have anecdotally an experience that nowadays, especially,
Okay.
not so much 10 years ago or 15 years ago, nowadays especially, that this is really more in the line of abuse of substances, that it is not typically a drug of choice with people that have addiction. And I say that word
Right.
drug of choice because that's an important term in addiction world. Drug of choice just refers to the typical thing
Right.
that you use when you have addiction, right? This is not a typical drug of choice.
Because I think, and you probably hear this a lot too, but when I talk about medication to parents and adults, what I hear a lot of times is, I don't want to be taking this for the rest of my life.
Right.
And so I think that that's what people
It's a fear.
Yeah, people have a fear like, oh, if
Right.
I start ADHD meds, like, yeah, it is. I mean, I took ADHD meds for like over 24 years of, not 24 years of my life, but yeah, like 20 years of my life, basically.
Yeah.
And some people are like, oh, shit. Sorry.
Can I make an ADHD joke, though?
Go for it.
Can I pull us back to where we were, though?
Oh, yeah, sorry. But no,
Because
like,
I want to spend time on the abuse of it.
right.
There's a danger with using Adderall, Focalin, Concerta, Ritalin. These are the primary stimulant medications that people are prescribed for ADHD for specific reasons that I think you have done a delightful job of sharing with us.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, you can't be taking other people's medication. That's where the abuse comes in. Curious question, Victoria.
Yeah.
And maybe you want to be honest with this. Maybe you don't.
Yeah.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I mean, have you had anybody say, hey, can you toss me one?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I have.
Don't freaking do that. Because when you're doing that, I mean, it's not going to kill you. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But if you get into a habitual thing with that, Mr. or Mrs. College student, that's dangerous.
Well, okay, like you were saying earlier, how, you give Adderall to someone who doesn't have ADHD, they're going to be like super wired and they're probably going to have the cleanest house ever. Well, then what happens, I think, is you like that feeling.
Right.
And so then that's why you keep going back to it, is
Right.
you want to be able to keep the clean house. You want to
Right.
be able to get all your errands done. You want to be able to
Right.
complete this project that you've been waiting till the last minute. In college, you waited to the last minute to write a 20-page paper.
Right.
So now I'm
Right.
going to, pop
Speak
some
it, girl.
Adderall, and I'm going to like blow through this 20-page paper. And then I continue. That becomes a pattern, which is what abuse is.
Right.
Becomes a pattern. And then now you push all your big assignments to a last minute, and and if you find a way to have access to it, then
Here's a
you
tip.
know,
You, Mr. and Mrs. College student or business professional who wants to get this engagement with Adderall for that bump that you just did an excellent job, way better than I could ever think about doing, stick with coffee.
Yeah.
Right? Just
black coffee.
stick with
We'll
coffee.
do basically the same thing.
but it's not as intense, and it's not
Right.
it like, how do I want to say that? The dangers of getting into that pattern that you just highlighted excellently is that there's also physical realities here. Like, your brain's not geared to do that.
Well, and then what's to stop me from, okay, Adderall no longer works for me, so now I'm going to try meth, or now I'm going to try other things. So it's
Yeah,
like,
and that
and I'm not
dance is-
saying it's necessarily like a gateway drug.
That dance,
but
it's not. That dances into an
it
addiction
does.
world.
But like, I don't know, like, I don't know.
Oh, we just try. See, you do that on the show.
Okay, my mom makes fun of me a lot because I will start a sentence
And you just stop.
and then I just stop and I like
Stop.
move on. And my mom will look at me like, "Are you gonna finish your sentence?"
So
and I'm
for
like,
being
"Oh,
genuine,
sorry."
if Victoria does this on the show, and I've
You
gotten,
just let it slide.
No, I jump in and rescue you when you
Oh,
do
okay.
that, right? Like, you just stop, and it's like, okay, well, I need to finish what she was saying or build on that. It's
That's an ADHD moment.
it really is.
Real life example right now.
But it's okay. We I love that.
But I think it's because a lot of times with ADHD, look, I'm gonna cry because I'm laughing.
Not because
But
you're sad.
yes, but a great way to, my brain works faster than my mouth.
Stay here for a second, and
Yeah.
what is that? I want people to understand what that means.
So a lot of times that means I don't have a filter. Sometimes I say things without thinking because my brain is going, and it's not necessarily that I'm not thinking, it's that my brain is moving so fast and going through so many things that I just say it as it comes to my brain. And so therefore I don't necessarily have that filter. And then a lot of times I'll say things and I end up kind of digging myself a hole.
And me listening to that, I hear disjointedness.
Yeah.
I hear not a cohesive thought. I hear
Right.
fragmented speech and
just
thought.
like what I just did. I just started a sentence and then I was like,
What are
yeah,
where
yeah,
are we going?
I don't know. Like, you
Yeah.
know.
and that's contrasted by folks that don't have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
It's a common reality. I think I'm probably going to misstate this, but like, normally, under all kinds of normal circumstances, the human brain thinks like 7 thoughts to the one that you can express. Like, that's a science fact.
Yeah.
For every thought
I
that
want
you
to say all
express,
7.
right? And so I have
I
all
wanna
of those
say 'em
thoughts.
all.
We have all of those thoughts typically,
Yeah.
but we understand that we're going to stay on point. We're going to finish the sentence. We're going to kind of engage in a concerted effort to get all the way to the end of what I was trying to say before I go to one of those other ones that were floating around in
Yeah.
my head. And you're right, with ADHD,
My
you
friends-
can't do that.
My friend and her
Yeah,
mom
very effectively,
used
anyway.
to always do this thing, and they would ask me. They haven't done it in a while, but they would ask me to like track that thought, and I would say something random, or at least something they thought was random and not applicable to what we were talking about. And I would trace it, and I would say, like, I would go back. I would say, okay, this is a thought I said, and like, here's the process of what you said that led me to saying this. Like, oh, you said this, which made you think of this. This one time I did this one time where this happened. And then all of a sudden I said, then what came out of my mouth? Like, to me, it made sense. It connected. But to
Right.
you, you're like,
I don't
what
know.
in the heck just happened?
What did
like,
she just
where
trust?
did that come from?
Right.
And in my head, it's all connected. Like,
You wanna hear something
maybe
funny?
This is this.
You want to hear something funny? People that know me, particularly other clinicians, sometimes I will get accused of having ADHD. Yeah, and I very well may.
I could see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I very well may, but if I do, I definitely would believe it to be on the mild side
Yeah.
for sure. But I don't think I do.
Oh, excuse me.
I think what actually I have that goes on in my brain chemistry and whatnot is some sort of kind of learning disability. Like,
Maybe.
yeah, I could not say the months in a row until well past developmentally. I should have been able to do that.
Yeah.
I still, to this day, I couldn't tell you what month Labor Day and Memorial Day is because I don't care, but I don't match them to the month. I don't know. I couldn't tell you right now. Something like
Labor Day
June or
is
something like
usually
that.
around my birthday.
Something like May is one of them or something
May
like
is Memorial.
Memorial, yeah. So I don't
September
care
is
to keep
Labor.
it in my head. Names are difficult for me, like memory.
Yeah.
Whatever brain function has to do with memory and memorizing things, like I don't do that well. Like I don't learn that way. So I think I have a learning disability. I don't think I have ADHD, but I've been accused of sort of mild versions of it.
Well, I mean, sometimes a lot of that stuff can sprinkle in.
Yeah.
Or like, I mean, it can. A lot of things can be,
Neurochemistry is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so much with
the
neurochemistry.
neurodivergent is like the trend word right now.
It's so trend. I'm sorry, I laugh at that
My
word.
neurodivergent brain, which I mean, it is, yeah. Like,
yeah, it's so silly.
but yeah, I mean, I think it's a very like fad trend right now to use the word neurodivergent. But
It is.
anyways, I mean, and I think the thing is to realize that like people who have ADHD are on medication for a reason, just like people who have high blood pressure are on a medication for a reason. Like, so it's not like I don't have high blood pressure, so I'm not going to go take some high blood pressure medicine. Like, I don't think that would end well for me.
Yeah.
As someone who actually does not have high blood, although sometimes I might give myself high blood pressure, but like
Back
as
to that
someone
point
who,
of be careful about using this inappropriately,
Right.
man. That's like a big deal.
Well, and if you are and that's another thing where therapy and other resources can be useful. Like, if you do find that you're not having focus, that you need to like figure something out, you're lacking motivation, whatever, like seek out therapy, seek out other resources that can help you like address those struggles without taking medication that is not applicable for appropriate for you to take.
Also, very important here at the end of the show. Oh, mom out there, dad out there, that you're wondering if your kid has or doesn't have. Sometimes it can be hard to discern, even for a professional.
Right.
There is psychological testing that is very, very helpful to rule this in and out. And it's very it has a high level of validity on the results. And a lot of times what you're going to find with the psych testing, just so you know, is your son or daughter is going to sit in front of a computer screen and they're going to have a screen that they're looking at, and all they have to do is hit the space bar, and there's going to be A, B, Q, D, Q, and whenever you see the letter S, you hit the space bar.
Yeah.
And so it's very reliable because they've had many people that don't have ADHD and they know what the results look like.
Right.
And people that have ADHD, I mean, they're not doing it well. They're half time they're not looking at the screen. They're just like, oh my God, this is so stupid. I can't stand this.
And that's the thing. I want to clarify that a therapist, an LCSW, which is you, and an LCMHC, which is me. So what those are? Those Chris is a licensed social worker.
Okay, I don't think people care about
Yeah,
this.
Victoria, I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor.
Therapists.
But anyways, we are able to diagnose it.
Yes.
Like we are able to diagnose anything under the DSM-5.
Right, good point.
Anything that's in the DSM-5, Chris and I can diagnose someone with. However, the psychological testing is just going to go a step further,
Right.
and to provide a little bit more of the backup with data and things when they they do a little bit more actual like testing.
Subjective data.
Yeah. Whereas Chris and I are going to make our diagnosis, correct me if I'm wrong, based off.
Pretty accurately.
Yeah, but like based off conversation, based off history, based off like, we're not handing you a bunch of things to fill out, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Which can be helpful to get the little
And so the psychological testing is just going to go a little bit more in depth so that way.
Because basically anybody that does psychological testing, they will do the same thing that we do.
Yes.
They get a diagnostic impression is really what it's called.
Right.
And then they'll go further with the computer test. Exactly. Yeah, excellent point. Good stuff. Listen, we need to wind down. I mean, I knew this conversation would be like this. This was really easy show prep to do because I figured
Which
would
I think
flow
is
like
great because it's just like the embodiment of ADHD.
I just really appreciate you being so kind and genuine to allow people to take a little peer through the window at what it's like to really experience this, like the day-to-day experience and what you do with that. And I want to give you a compliment again publicly. Thanks. You handle this behaviorally well. We didn't get to talk about that tonight. Yeah. There's more to learn about how do you handle this without medication, and there's a plethora of things to do.
We could go on. And
so I just really appreciate you doing this show this way, Victoria.
It makes me think of, I don't know if any of y'all know who Renee Rapp is. She's a singer. She's actually from Huntersville. She went to Hopewell High School, I think. And she was in an interview one time, and this guy asked her, he was like, the way your brain works is just fascinating. And she goes, ADHD. ADHD.
All proud about it.
Like,
well, we had a YouTube comment that actually said that there was a president of the United States that there's belief took a ADHD medication. I don't know who they were referring to or what that is, but look, all kinds of people have this issue.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And I'm just saying, and I don't know if we've ever talked like this before about certain things, but like with some mental health things, it's not discriminatory. It picks whoever it wants.
It does.
So like you can be a therapist and have ADHD, you can be a doctor and have ADHD, you can be a janitor and have ADHD. Like you can be anybody.
Yeah. Boy, girl.
Yeah. But that also doesn't mean that you can't be successful.
Right.
You can be successful with and manage ADHD at the same time.
And I love that you're looking into camera to really help people understand that, because you are embodiment of being successful.
I have 2 master's degrees and a bachelor's degree.
So listen, I hope that this has been helpful for you to understand a little bit about what ADHD is, what it isn't, the Adderall, the efficacy of medications that help with this. We do have tools that help you manage mental health issues. Adderall being one of them. They're not a solution, though, right? So remember that. I don't know. Anything? I'm going to let you take us out from there, because this, thank you so much for doing what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's helpful to have like a real example. And that we're not just 2 people who neither one have ADHD that are talking about this, I think it helps to have an in-person experience of like what it's actually like to, and I'm very open about it. So I don't mind talking about it because I think it helps.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Listen, stay with us, stay tuned, stay well, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Bye, y'all.